Banning market shifted to Paliagoda.
ලබන සඳුදා හෝ අඟහරුවාදා දිනේදී මේ විවෘත වීමට නියමිතව තිබෙනවා.
Total number of COVID-19 patients increased to 14,715. Total number of COVID-19 deaths increased to 41. Construction work of the LNG power plant in Kerawalapitia to commence next week.
Good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime News on TV1. Starting off with a look at your top story this afternoon. The COVID-19 death toll in the country has risen to 41. This was after 5 more patients who contracted COVID-19 passed away yesterday.
A person at a nursing home in Rajagiriya suffering with pneumonia has died of COVID-19. He was a 51-year-old. A 45-year-old resident of Bulletin also died due to a COVID-19 related respiratory infection. A 63-year-old woman who had passed away due to COVID-19 related pneumonia infection. An unidentified male between the age of 55 and 60 also fell victim to COVID-19 and passed away. A 48-year-old male, a resident of Ragama, who was a cancer patient, had died at his residence after contracting COVID-19. A total number of 430 COVID-19 patients were identified yesterday. All these patients were linked to the Paliagoda COVID-19 cluster. 251 patients out of the total number identified yesterday are from the Colombo district, while 18 and 16 people are residents of the Gampaha and Kalutara districts respectively. Accordingly, the number of patients reported from the Dilapiti and Minuangoda cluster has risen to 11,237, while the total number of cases in the island since the onset of COVID-19 pandemic rose to 14,715. The total recoveries in Sri Lanka reached 9,537 yesterday, when 657 COVID-19 patients fully recovered from the virus. According to the Ministry of Health, 5,137 COVID-19 patients are currently receiving treatment.
The media spokesperson of the Ministry of Health, Dr. Jairuan Bandara, convening a media briefing this morning, spoke about the current COVID-19 situation in the country.
Do not forget the fact that there are more than 50,000 people in quarantine centers. We have not eradicated COVID-19 as of yet. According to the scientific analysis of the spread of the virus, at the moment, spread is at level 3. If the spread reaches level 4, we will have to embark on a community spread, and we will not know as to where the virus will emerge from. Looking at the current spread and the formation of clusters at different places in the country, there is a possibility that we might enter the 4th stage of the spread of the virus. Something that is frequently being reported these days is that elderly people falling victim to the virus at their homes. You can die of various causes when you are feeble and old, but a proper scientific study should be conducted to see whether they were positive for the COVID-19 virus.
විද්‍යාත්මක අධ්‍යයනයක් කරලා වාර්තාවක් නිකුත් කරලා නැහැ. ඒ ඉදිරියේදී එලි දැක්වෙන තුරු අපි මතක තියාගන්න ඕනේ. නිවෙස්වල මේ යන්නේ නොසලකලිකමත් එක හේතුවක් හින්දා. ඔබ මිය ගියොත් මල බෙර නැහැ, මතක බන්න. පාන්සු කූලේ නැහැ, සුදු කොඩි වැල් නැහැ, ගුණ කතන නැහැ.
210 expatriates who were unable to return to the country due to COVID-19 were repatriated this morning. The staff manager of the Bandaranaike International Airport said that they were repatriated from Dubai. All of these passengers were subjected to PCR tests.
The Central Environmental Authority has introduced a series of guidelines for the disposal of clinical contaminants, including masks and gloves.
The Ministry of Environment announced that contaminated waste in isolated areas as well as in isolated homes should be disposed as specified in these guidelines. Accordingly, local authorities have been instructed to deploy vehicles and staff to dispose of clinical waste. Also, masks and gloves that were used by COVID-19 patients should be kept in a yellow bag. Garbage packed in yellow bags should never be used for recycling, and steps should be taken to dispose of it properly. The guidelines issued by the Central Environmental Authority also states that masks and gloves used by the public should be thoroughly washed and dried before disposal. The authority said that the guidelines have been issued to all local government bodies.
The revised bus fares in the country came into effect from midnight yesterday.
State Minister of Transport Dilu Mamunugama stated that bus fares will increase 1.2 times the normal fare under level 2. Accordingly, the amount of passengers allowed will be limited to the number of seats. According to the relevant criteria, the minimum bus fare will be increased from 12 rupees to 14 rupees.
We have no way to travel. We don't even have buses. They are going to charge us extra from today. We never get the change when we travel in a bus. Even our salaries have reduced. So in such a situation, how are we going to bear this expense? There are no people to travel in buses. Some buses stop at a halt for about 40 minutes to an hour to get about 15 passengers. Although bus fares were increased, there are no people to travel in buses. Police media spokesperson DIG Ajit Rohana made these remarks regarding the staff at the Colombo Menin market.
අපේ රටේ ප්‍රධානම ආර්ථික මධ්‍යස්ථානයක් වන මැනින් වෙළඳපොළ මේ වන විට වසා දමලා තියෙනවා කොවිඩ් ආසාදිතයින් හේතුවෙන්. කෙසේ වෙතත් ඊයේ දිනේදී ගත්ත තීරණයක් අනුව මැනින් වෙළඳපොළ පෑලියගොඩ ප්‍රදේශ.
Yesterday, we have decided to temporarily relocate operations of the Manning market to Paliagoda. Infrastructure development is underway to commence operations, and they will be completed by next Monday or Tuesday. It has also been decided to obtain the support of the Civil Defence Force for loading and unloading activities. Those who are employed at the Manning market can carry out their businesses here, subject to certain conditions. One such condition is that they should present a negative PCR test. If there is any person who has not undergone a PCR test, they should contact SSP in charge of Central Colombo on his mobile. The number is 071-8591-551 and allocate a time for them to conduct a PCR test.
ඒ අනුව ඔබට පුළුවන් ඒ PCR පරීක්ෂණ සඳහා යොමු වීමට අවස්ථාව ලබා ගන්න.
Nuwara Elia District Secretary MBR Pushpakumara has made a special request from the estate communities to celebrate the Diwali festival inside their homes to support the authorities in combating the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic.
As of today, about 50 COVID-19 patients have been identified from the Nuwara district. Close to 1,500 families are undergoing quarantine. Most of them are from estate communities. It is difficult to conduct home quarantine at estates because the houses are placed in close proximity to one another, unlike villages. Therefore, home quarantine does not happen effectively. It is difficult to stop the spread within estates. We noticed how 7 or 8 members of the same family had contracted the virus. We wish to sincerely request those celebrating the Diwali festival on the 14th to celebrate it indoors. Do not gather in masses at Kovils. If you celebrate Diwali as usual, the risk of spreading COVID-19 is higher. We would also request residents of these areas who are employed in other high-risk districts, such as Colombo, to avoid travelling to their homes to celebrate the festival. Please follow the health guidelines issued by the health authorities and stay in your homes.
Parliamentarian Pramitha Bandara Tennakone expressed these views at a media briefing held at the Dambulla Special Economic Centre.
We responsibly state that 3 million kilograms of vegetables have been sold. Even the day before that 3 million kilos of vegetables were sold, we have not received any reports of vegetables being spoiled and thrown away. We make this statement with responsibility. I am at the Dambulla Special Economic Centre and the vendors at this economic zone are also here. They too agree with this statement.
The Ceylon Electricity Board announced that the construction of the proposed LNG power plant in Keravalapitia will begin next week.
Chairman of the CEB, Vijita Herath, said that the power plant is due to add 300 megawatts to the national grid. He added that the construction of the power plant is scheduled to conclude in 2 years. The project cost $300 million.
Joe Biden has said President Donald Trump's refusal to accept defeat in last week's White House election is an embarrassment.
President-elect Joe Biden says nothing would stop the transfer of power in the U.S. government, even as President Donald Trump says without evidence the election was marred by fraud and some of his Republican allies back probes.
I just think it's an embarrassment, quite frankly. The only thing that I think it will not help the president's legacy. Well, first of all, I'm letting him know that America's back. We're going to be back in the game. It's not American alone. Number one, I've had the opportunity to speak with now 6 world leaders, and the response has been very fulsome, energetic, and they're all looking forward to being able to, from Great Britain to France, to Germany, to Canada, etc.
Trump meanwhile tweeted he would ultimately win the race that all major TV networks have forecast he's lost. As happens every 4 years, US media projected the election victor. None of the state-by-state results have yet been certified. Several vote counts are counting, and the outcome will only be set in stone once the US Electoral College meets on the 14th of December.
Mumbai Indians won their 5th Indian Premier League title after beating Delhi Capitals by 5 wickets in the grand finale last night. And that's a wrap of Lunchtime News on TV1. To follow details of these stories and more, you can of course log on to our award-winning website www.newsfirst.lk and follow us on our social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. I'm Charlene Benedict for the News First team. Have yourselves a great day ahead.